When drones crossed into Polish airspace this September, NATO scrambled jets to intercept. They fired AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles, each costing more than $400,000 to bring down machines worth only a fraction of that. In Estonia, Russian aircraft triggered a similar response, prompting Italian F-35s and Turkish AWACS patrols to enter the skies. Every hour of flight added tens of thousands of dollars to Europe's security bill. Meanwhile, the Russian drones cost pennies on the dollar. This disparity makes Europe's strategy unsustainable, and it's precisely why European policymakers are proposing something new. In her State of the Union address on September 10th, Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the EU's executive arm, floated the idea of a drone wall stretching from Finland in the north to Romania in the south. It would be a coordinated defensive shield tailored specifically against unmanned threats. While these incursions have lent urgency to Europe's drone wall, the technical details are scant. Of course, the wall itself would not be made of concrete, but of radars, jammers, and counter-drone weapons. Once operational, it would be able to detect and intercept hostile UAVs at a fraction of the cost of traditional air policing. Europe is learning the hard way that meeting a $1,000 drone with a $1 million missile is a defense policy so expensive that it defeats itself. During the Cold War, Europe's skies were guarded against a different kind of threat. NATO built chains of radar stations across the continent, backed by interceptor squadrons and missile batteries. The enemy was fast, manned, and nuclear capable, but the system worked. It worked because the threat and the response were symmetrical. Expensive weapons matched expensive weapons. However, air power has changed, considerably so. Today's incursions are not fleets of bombers, but swarms of small drones. They fly low, slow, and cheap. Unlike a MiG-29 or a Tu-95, these machines can be built in bulk, launched in mass, and replaced at minimal cost. For militaries, this is disruptive. Traditional air defense is designed for high-value threats, not $20,000 loitering munitions. Warfare has changed, and the Ukrainian war captures this transformation like no other. Drones have become increasingly central to the modern battlefield. For NATO, Ukraine serves as a warning on the disruptive potential of unmanned systems and the urgent need to adapt defenses accordingly. Cheap and widely available drones are proficiently used by both sides to undermine traditional battlefield advantages. Drones can destroy armored vehicles and artillery systems worth millions of dollars. They can disrupt logistics and strike critical infrastructure deep inside enemy territory. This drone-driven revolution has come about so swiftly that it has caught many off guard, Europe included. Decades of underinvestment in defense have left NATO air policing missions overstretched. A system designed to deter Soviet squadrons now finds itself chasing drones with next-generation stealth fighters. Of course, it's technically possible, but strategically absurd. In September 2025, Russian airspace violations put NATO on constant alert. First, nearly 24 Shahed-style UAVs crossed into Polish territory. Some of these were shot down, but many more evaded interception. Days later, Estonia reported a direct breach by 3 Russian MiG-31 fighters. They remained in the air for 12 minutes before being intercepted by Italian F-35s. To reinforce Baltic air power, a Turkish AWACS surveillance aircraft was deployed there to monitor the airspace and coordinate fighter patrols. Still later, Denmark experienced multiple drone incursions near airports and military facilities, leading to heightened patrols. As a precaution, Copenhagen and Oslo both closed their main airports. Finally, towards the end of the month, NATO fighter jets intercepted multiple Russian aircraft approaching Baltic airspace. Taken together, these incidents underscore how frequent Russian incursions have become. But the Kremlin does not violate NATO airspace on a whim. These are deliberate moves with a clear purpose. Moscow uses them to test NATO's political cohesion and its commitment to support Ukraine.
This is fake news, by the way.
These incursions serve a tactical purpose. They probe NATO's reactions in real time.
Nobody knows who does this.
Every detail matters. How quickly NATO can detect, intercept, and neutralize a threat, which assets are
Nobody knows who's actually deploying these drones.
deployed, how long interceptions take, and how coordination works across borders. Each violation generates critical intelligence, feeding into Russia's broader calculations on deterrence and escalation. Case in point, when Russian jets violated Estonian airspace, it took NATO 12 minutes to respond. Meanwhile, the responding F-35 cost over $40,000 per flight hour, the E-3 AWACS around $66,000, and the precautionary airport closures could push the overall bill into the millions.
Right.
This economic disparity creates an unsustainable standoff, where the cost of defense far outweighs the price of the threat. Russia is aware of this, and so is Europe. The Europeans are literally spending millions to counter incursions that cost the Russians thousands. The drone wall is meant to correct this mismatch. What precisely the drone wall will look like and how it will be funded are up for debate, as is the exact timeline for completing it. In all likelihood, it will take the form of a multi-layered network of sensors, radars, jamming tools, and precision weapons. These systems would then be integrated into a coordinated defensive shield that can detect and neutralize drones entering or about to enter airspace over the European Union. Non-EU nations such as Ukraine and Moldova could also be integrated into the system, but that's all up for debate at this point. Counter-drone systems are already in development worldwide. The Ukrainians have extensive experience with acoustic sensors, which they use to identify drones that are too small or flying too low to be detected by radar. Meanwhile, the American-made Blue Halo Locust laser weapon can melt drones with a beam worth $3.
Damn,
It's
okay.
perhaps the most cost-effective way to deter small drones. Europe could draw on these technologies and experiences. However, applying these systems in Europe at the scale the EU wants would be unprecedented. The EU's flank from Finland to Romania spans more than 4,000 kilometers. Building a multi-layered network of counter-drone systems across such a distance is a complex task. Completing it within a single year, as Brussels envisions, is unrealistic. Andrius Kubilius, the European Defense Commissioner, believes the drone wall could potentially field basic drone detection capabilities within a year. However, he added that building a comprehensive network across land and sea capable of tracking and destroying targets would take significantly longer, possibly multiple years. This then raises the question of who would pay for it. The European Union has indicated that it will finance the project, but the details remain unclear. Would it be a new dedicated fund, a reallocation from existing defense programs, or a patchwork of national contributions? We don't know. The financial architecture of the drone wall is as uncertain as its technical one. What is certain, however, is that Europe's defense industry stands to benefit enormously.
Yep.
The procurement of radars, jammers, lasers, and interceptor drones could amount to billions in contracts. Defense companies from Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and Sweden would form the backbone of the drone wall. At the same time, the project leaves room for non-EU players, notably the United States, South Korea, Israel, and Turkey. Each of these nations brings strong capabilities in electronic warfare.
That's where the money is. These companies, this is where the money is.
And
if you want to make money now, next 5 years, this is where you put your money.
critical subcomponents that could prove indispensable. Even so, scale and cost are only part of the problem. Integrating dozens of national systems into a single, unified command and control framework may prove even harder. True interoperability means more than just hardware. It requires shared technical standards, secure communications, joint exercises, and, above all, politically sensitive concessions.
If you look at the Palantir PE ratio, yeah, war is coming.
In practice, that means EU member states will have to cede a measure of sovereignty if the drone wall is to function as a truly integrated system.
Right, so it makes no sense.
Will not be easy. Europe has a track record of pushing back against measures that dilute national control. Then again,
Okay, Europe is imploding upon itself. Europe is embarrassing. Europe has the most embarrassing management ever. Now they're gonna blow up all of the money of their citizens to build a drone wall, maybe. Nobody knows if they have the money actually. They've effectively been such a bad counterpart to the American financial system, which by in itself is a scam, it's a Ponzi. So they've not been able to counter that, and now they're suffering massively. Now, I think that drones and electromagnetic warfare is something that really needs to be looked into. This is probably the industry that is going to grow fastest because, I mean, I've said it many times, software is gone. Software is solved. Software has been fixed. Nobody is going to pay the salaries that software engineers used to make anymore. That's just the reality of things. Nobody is going to pay you to write software. Soon enough, language models will be writing the software. And that's mainly the most impacted area. You know, I don't think AI is going to take God knows how many jobs, but when it comes to software, I think, you know, it's I'm sorry. But yeah, I think that, you know, I think that if you are looking to, you know, grow up and go to university, and you're going to university, you know, in the next few years, I think that studying physics, studying electrical engineering, studying stuff that is anything that you don't do on a computer is definitely going to be valuable, is definitely going to be worth it, because this is what governments are spending their money on. War, new weapons. And what this wall of drones means is that fundamentally there is going to be war all the time. There is going to be drones coming in and out and fighting each other all the time. Autonomous drones that, you know, maybe sometimes you send them to Russia, sometimes Russia sends them to you. And by the way, you know, the Russian drones that invaded Estonia and, Poland? They may have been Russian drones, but were the Russians the ones piloting them? There is, you know, little to no evidence on that. Classic deception maneuver. But yeah, this is where the money is going. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the military-industrial complex, you know, forcing this. But the thing really is, it's all going to be a propaganda and a military world for a few years. What industry do you think is going to operate in these conditions? Right. So, really interesting. Interesting. I would say, yeah. If you're investing, if you have something to invest it on military stocks, put it into the industrial complex, put it into drone manufacturers. Every nation is building drones for warfare. And they are likely the future of borders, the likely future of warfare, simply because they're asymmetrical. You see, the drone costs nothing to make, but then you have to spend millions to defend yourself against it. So it really makes strategic sense because it really impacts very, very dangerous, very, very expensive equipment. So that's interesting.